You think that's bad? Remember when I auditioned to be David Hasselhoff's car?
But what's funny is, of course, this has become more notorious not for Muhammad and that whole thing, but because this is the episode where we rip on Family Guy. And so everyone, that's what most people want to talk to us about, going, do you really not like Family Guy, or are you? And yeah. I just want to say for the record right now, like, we've seen Family Guy. We do hate it. We do hate Family Guy. And it's just a person, and we totally understand that people love it, and that's why we put it in the show. We understand that it speaks to some people, and it's like it can just be a simple laugh, and that's great. And we certainly don't think it should be taken off the air or anything like that. We just don't respect it in terms of writing. That's probably the best way to put it.
That's a good way to put it, yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Because, there's basically, we always try to avoid, there's one thing we always try to avoid in South Park is gags. We hate gags. And so whenever we're bringing in new writers, we always know the gaggy writers, right? Which are the ones that no matter what you're talking about and how deep of an issue or whatever character arc or whatever it is, they're just throwing out a gag. And it's just like, yeah, and then he says this. And it's like, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. That has nothing to do with that character. You're just throwing out a gag randomly. And it seems like Family Guy is basically just gags.
I think what makes me disappointed about Family Guy is I think it could be an amazing show. I think you can tell they're smart people working on it. But I think they've just kind of gone for...
I don't think they work hard enough.
Yeah, they need to work harder. What's that? What else happened in this episode? This is part 2.
Well, what happens, a big thing that happens is that Cartman goes and meets Bart Simpson, and we know a lot of people at The Simpsons, and The Simpsons is a show we respect very, very much. But it was pretty great because after this episode aired, actually, no, it was after the first episode aired, so this was the second part, but after the first part aired, we got calls from people at The Simpsons saying thank you, because they actually hate Family Guy more than we do, even though they won't say it. And then we got calls from people that work on King of the Hill saying, they said, quote, "You're doing God's work by ripping on Family Guy." And because Family Guy is kind of this, it's like the Justin Timberlake thing. It's like when you're a musician and you're doing your stuff and you're working hard and you're trying to do art, and then Justin Timberlake comes along and just rakes in all the cash and everyone thinks he's awesome. You're like, dude, come on, that's not that good. But that's how sort of everyone in this town feels about Family Guy. And again, it is like this childish jealousy too, because it's like, come on, our stuff's cooler.
Yeah, but it totally is childish because Family Guy gets like 4 times the ratings of us.
So Simpsons people are really upset, but they were so happy about this episode that then, after we had talked to them, we're like, okay, well let's have Bart feel the same way that Cartman feels, and we'll just have Cartman meet Bart, and then we'll put in the King of the Hill staff in there too, just for fun. Yeah. And so it was really like there was this very animation solidarity moment where everyone did come together over hatred for Family Guy.
Yeah, so like our job is to fart in their face a little bit.
Well, you did a 2-part episode once about them.
About Family Guy, but I mean, just fart in anybody's face. So like Clooney,
well, Family Guy bugs you though.
Family Guy, but it's a thing that's just like, okay, well, let's just there's something different. Family Guy is funny because it's so tacky and never done to rip on another show like that. Yeah. And that's why it's so funny for us to do, because it's so obviously lame and unsportsmanlike. But there was still like a little bit of... It's funny about it.
Last decade, it was like when you knew Pearl Jam didn't really like Stone Temple Pilots. Yeah. Then this decade, it's like when the Killers got mad at the Bravery. Yeah. I hate the Bravery. Yeah. There was a little bit of that element to it.
Yeah, just like, okay, guys. Like, you're all the same, kind of. Like, what do you... Yeah. It's such a nuanced thing of like, no, we're not like them. We use synthesizers. It's like something like that,
Our writing's pure, man.
Totally different, dude. Yeah. I just think that about, like, a lot of... Yeah, so we do it like anybody else does.
I felt kind of torn up about that because I do enjoy Family Guy.
You do.
And I enjoy your show, too. Well, I like Family Guy because of the pop culture stuff.
Right. They do a lot of pop culture stuff. They just don't do it very well.
It's a way to my heart.
Yeah.
But... I wouldn't put it on the level of the South Park. Because I'm always...
Because you're sitting here.
No, because I'm just a fan of original over the people that piggyback the original. I've always been like that with anything.
Right.
That's why I don't like Dennis Leary.
Oh, interesting. I don't really know.
Never have Dennis Leary in the BS
I don't really know much about him.
Well, he kind of did Bill Hicks after Bill Hicks.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can't... No, that's it for me.
Once you know Bill Hicks
out.
And once you've
I really
Bill
like
Hicks.
Bill Hicks.
Yeah.
And it's
Are you thinking Dennis Leary killed Bill Hicks?
No. As far as we don't know. I mean, like, Dennis Leary's talented, but I won't watch Rescue Me because I even got the DVD and I watched like 3 episodes and it just the Bill Hicks thing, I just couldn't get past. I'm like really petty with that.
Yeah, no, but why not be?
Yeah, why not?
But why not be?
We only have one life.
Yeah.
All right. So October 7th.
I could not believe it sitting on the couch at your, and I don't get shocked by South Park, by any of the stuff I think that one would normally call shocking.
Right.
I just get shocked by how it's a perfect thing. I can't believe you've put it in the exact right spot. And I couldn't believe all the Family Guy stuff.
Yeah.
Even your satire of the Family Guy about not doing jokes was just.
It was really, what happened the next day? We aired that episode, and we went into our offices, and we had flowers on our desks from the Simpsons people. and then we got calls from the people that were doing King of the Hill, and they said, give them the message they are doing God's work. And it was all just, there was this whole feeling in the town of like, thank you for saying that about Family Guy. But another funny thing that happened with that, when we told Comedy Central, we're like, okay, we're going to do a show, and because the first idea was we're going to show Muhammad. Sure. But he's just going to be a guy, and he's going to stand there. The joke was he's going to be on Family Guy, so that if they get pissed off at anyone, they'll be pissed off at Family Guy.
Sure.
And so, that was the whole thing. And then they said, no, we're not going to show Muhammad. We're like, but don't you see, we have to. You have to show Muhammad.
South Park, sorry, Comedy Central actually said to you, you're not going to show Muhammad?
Yes, they said we cannot show Muhammad. So we actually had to change the whole idea of that show. We're like, okay, well then we're going to make the idea of the show that a network won't show Muhammad, and because that's now what we can talk about, and so when it got until the week before, we were still trying to convince them. We're like, come on, just let us show Muhammad, let us show Muhammad. They said, no, we just can't do it. And we said, well, do you know that there's a show running on your network right now with Muhammad? And they were like, what's that? And we're like, South Park. And we said, there's an episode we made 4 years ago with Muhammad in it, and you're rerunning it on your network, and so are all these other syndicated, networks. And they said, really? And they had no idea.
It was also really interesting to me that
don't do
Was there ever any conversation with any of the Family Guy people after the Manatee episode?
No, never. It never has been.
Have you ever run into anybody at a thing?
No, we don't get invited to shit. It's like we don't do. We don't do the Hollywood parties. Really, we don't do. I play board games at home.
Yeah, because it was an interesting thing because this is what happened. We had Muhammad in an episode of South Park 4 years ago, and it was he was a positive character. He was a superhero that turned himself into a beaver and fought Abraham Lincoln. What really happened? We both had the same reaction when we weren't in the same place, but we one day turned the news on and there's all these people rioting in the Middle East, and it said, "Cartoon of Muhammad sparks riot." We're like, holy shit, they just figured it out? I guess they just saw it there or whatever, and then it was shown, what this was all about, and then it was called Cartoon Wars, and we were just like, wow, all right, well, we got to do something about this. And it was amazing. Right away we were saying to Comedy Central, we're like, well, when we come back, we're going to have Muhammad on again. And they're like, oh, no, you're not. We're like, no, we're not going to have bombs in his hat or anything. We're just going to have him, maybe he'll turn into a beaver again or something. But, it's like, and they're like, no, you can't do that. And we're like, well, why? We rip on Catholics and Mormons and Jews, and they were like, well, because, but these people will kill you. And we're like, really, they'll kill us. Yeah. And it was like, well, you can't do that. You can't say, okay, well, we'll make fun of anyone unless they threaten to kill us, and then we won't. Because, it really became a big fight with it. We're like, that's really a bad line you're starting to draw here. And so we told them, they actually said, we would prefer you not even do an episode about this issue. And we're like, well, good going. Now we're doing it for sure. And
Cartoon Wars, we just couldn't help it. You have to do it. I'm saying about that, Cartoon Wars.
So we decided, and our big idea was, we'll have Muhammad on South Park, but it'll be on the show Family Guy, so they'll get bombed. But and then we had, so we showed Muhammad in Family Guy on South Park, and then Comedy Central said, well, we're blacking it out, and so they put a black space there. So then we put in a text that said, Comedy Central won't allow you to see this. And all it was Muhammad standing there at the door, hands Family Guy a football helmet and walks away. And they blacked it out. So then right after that, just to make a point, you know, we're like, then we had Jesus Christ shitting on George Bush. That's fine. All right.
You think that's bad? Remember the time I sang La Cucaracha for Paul McCartney?
No! No! We are not resorting to that.